Hey, everybody. So this is my tips and predictions for this week. Gosh, I can't believe it already. I think we're into the 7th. Yes, the 7th of July to the 14th of July. And of course, it's that second week where we're really in the summer now. We're really in, if you're in the States or if you're in our hemisphere at all, you're in summer. So what I want to say about this is that we've got two things going on that I think you need to be aware of. The first is, of course, we've got a Mars retrograde going on right now in Aquarius. And one of the things we want to be aware of with the Mars retrograde, and I've talked about this, I talked about this a little bit last week, Mars retrograde is an opportunity, it's a do-over, right? It's an opportunity to go back and pick up those pieces of things that were important to you and perhaps do them again, get back into them. So one of the things that's very important about that Aquarian energy, and before I know I'm going to pull some cards, but before I get into that, Aquarian energy is a very humanitarian energy. It's about caring for others. But one of the things you want to be aware of with Mars in retrograde is not overdoing it and repeating and repeating. So one of the things that you might want to be aware of is, and come into your consciousness, have I completed something? Have I stated my mind already? Is it already in motion, or do I need to kind of keep banging that hammer? So in other words, it's very important with Mars that you not like overdo it in terms of your fight, right? So remember that Aquarian energy is very detached, very much a part of it has that humanitarian energy to it because of that. It sits in that 11th house naturally. And the other thing I want to bring up, cards falling. The other thing I want to bring up is the idea that Jupiter's retrograding in Scorpio, which is very interesting because it's, of course, the sign right before the power sign that it's in because it naturally rules, Sagittarius. And as that in going back into Scorpio, it's a chance to dig up things that perhaps you may have overlooked and that may be an opportunity to expand on. Any old projects you picked up in the past, anything. The thing of remembering, I want you to remember, about retrogrades they are a chance to remember, reflect, and review. And that's also true when we look at cards that are reversed. So if we're going to look at, for example, these two cards, which I pulled, actually they pulled themselves for this week, and we're going to look at them as retrogrades. We're going to look at reversals as retrogrades. And so what we want to do first is understand the concept of why this 7th chakra, right? This is a 7th, I'm sorry, it's a little bit glary there. I want you to be able to see it. Maybe, there we go. Now you can see it. It's the creation card from the Chakra Wisdom Oracle Cards, which is my deck. And then this is the facade card, both extremely powerful. I find that every card in this deck has its own power, its own energy. But I want to talk about what we're going to look for this week in terms of, and what you can look for in terms of opportunities that may be coming your way. You know, one of the things I want to say is that just because we may have feelings going on doesn't mean the opportunities aren't there. So when we look at a 7th chakra card and a 3rd chakra card, there's no 2nd chakra here. There's no sexual emotion, things we're passionate about. And in a lot of the research I'm doing, I'm finding that the chakra really are 6 and 1. 6 plus 1. Now, I don't want to get you confused because that's a different thing, but when we look at 6 plus 1, that is exactly why the 7th chakra in my deck are the +1. They are neutral because spirit's neutral. So we're really looking at the 6 chakras going here +1. And what happens in the Chakra Wisdom cards is that 6th chakra becomes purple instead of indigo because it's primary and secondary colors. Indigo actually is the color that's sandwiched in between the blue and the purple. And why is that? Because in some ways, it's that forgotten energy that we live with. So in that, I want to say that when you see in the Chakra Wisdom Oracle a 6th chakra card, that becomes forgotten energy as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the cards we pulled for the coming week. I love, by the way, giving you tips about the deck as I read for the week for you. So let's take a look at what's going on. Now, when we look at these two retrograde cards, right? And I want you to start thinking about the cards just as a nuance in terms of retrograde planets giving them more energy. So when we talk about Mars or Jupiter retrograding, the creation card is around, let's look at Jupiter, opportunities, right? Because it's reversed. So it's opportunities coming back toward you. And it's also that Mars, right? Mars coming back. Now, you have to be careful here of overblowing things. Why? Because when we look at Mars and Jupiter as the retrogrades right now, we're looking at the, because Jupiter's expansion, it's going to go all over the place, right? But it's also luck. And it also rules publishing, which of course, if you're interested in writing, if you're interested in anything literary, this is a time to pull out old projects and review them. However, you want to be really careful when we look at Mars with it, not to rip apart what you had, but rather review and I want to say replenish, kind of look at what is it now. I pulled out a book I'm working on that I'm recently been working on, and it's old and I've kind of revamped it, and there's a lot of things in me that have evolved, and so I'm not saying the same things that I said a few years ago. So when you look at the creation card coming forward this week, I want you to recognize this as opportunities that may be disguised as family issues. Now, when I say that to you, one of the things that I see happening, the facade card reversed, third chakra, this is also, in some chakra ideas, it was originally the spleen card. It's also that chakra that I believe cause is a causative element of our thinking. When I see the facade card right side up, I know that people have been doing their work on their family dynamics, because this is the story of Dariah, and that's his inner child right there. So his inner child actually appears in the fable, and he reclaims himself. Now for him, this represents for him reclaiming what he didn't have. And it's the same for you. If you've been going through a lot of personal work, it's time to put it all together. Now, one of the things I love about reversals in the Chakra Wisdom Oracle is that, here comes a big one, I don't believe that chakras get blocked. I believe they're busy. So your chakra may be busy in processing something and not necessarily a block. So when we look at a reversal, we don't look at it like, oh, that's a block. It may be something that is trying to be processed through you. So let's take a look at the message for this week as we put together all the elements that I gave you. The first thing we want to look at is, because Mars came up first, and I talked about Mars first, I'm going to assign this the Mars energy, and I'm going to assign this second card, the facade reversed, the Jupiter energy. So what does that tell you? Well, first of all, if I start here, I can say to you, this is expanding on your personal healing and your ability to, third chakra, process it in a wholly healthy way. And I forgot to turn off my ice maker. It's going to go on. So there we go. And then the other card here, when we look at creation, this is the story of the she shaman and the old birch tree. And at one time, she shaman roamed the earth and gave everyone their creative gifts. This here, as a reversal, and Mars reversed, is reclaiming the gifts you had. Now, as we put these two together, there's something very powerful happening here. No longer, you must let your those you have, quote, blamed or held responsible for your past injuries. In order to find your personal creative freedom, it's time to let that go. So this week, what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to pull an exercise out of it. And by the way, a lot of people ask me why the Chakra Wisdom Toolkit is separate from the card deck. And that's because we actually couldn't put the full fable that happened during my near-death experience in the card deck. So we're going to let's take a look at that Jupiter. Remember, the Jupiter energy I'm calling on the facade, I'm tapping onto the facade card, because Jupiter is about what you're looking to expand. And because facade is reversed, you're not looking to expand your wounding. You're looking to expand your healing. And one of the things I want to say to you is I'd like you to drop your shoulders right now and just breathe. And something that happens too when there's a lot of energy that bubbles up is we speak very quickly. I know I do. And we get into kind of a didactic, I'm looking for the fable. We get into a very didactic kind of pattern of almost an emotional panic. And I want you to know that when we review our past, sometimes that happens. So a couple things I'm going to say to you about this. First of all, this is what it looks like in the toolkit. But I want you to notice that the key word for the fable was actually, the fable is called Bronze God. So what I mean by that is the Bronze God is the original name of the fable. That's what the angel called it when it came forward to me. And there was a focus of the week that becomes very important. And it's, this isn't who I am. So one of the things I want you to do as you step into the state with me for the week is I want you to begin to separate out your memories from the memories of the wounding. And I want you to be like energetically spot on with yourself about that. So just make 2 columns in your journal and just say who I am and who I'm not. Right? And I want you to notice that sometimes this card comes up when we're dealing with thinking we're depressed when it's actually an inherited depression. And by the way, I am not trying to be a medical doctor here. I'm not. But I want you to recognize that there's sometimes we throw that word around as if it's true when we may be just carrying a wounding with us that's someone else's sadness. So that said, one of the things I want to show you in here, and we're going to do really fast, and then I'm going to let you go. Okay, so in every day of the week, there is an exercise. Now, for this particular card, when I developed the toolkit exercises, it was with a group. It was a mastermind group about 20 years ago. All those people have gone on to best-selling books, Academy Awards, all kinds of things. So one of the things I want to say is on Thursday in the book, there's a 5-day exercise plan, which you can do or skip around. You know, I'm very loose about it, but that came from our group activities. And so in Thursday, there is a solo journey activity if you want to do it alone, or if you want to do it with a group. I'm going to share with you what the exercises of the week. And the solo exercise is the true freedom of play will break down any facade. So play. Write down the name of one person you've been meaning to play with. Set an intention to contact that person and make a play date. Have fun. And you know, that can be yourself. That can be something you want to do. You might want to go paint pottery or just go horseback riding. Write down something, even if you don't do it. And I want to say this, make it okay. This isn't something you have to do. You know, our life is so full of have-tos that one of the things that happens is that we make such a big plan, we forget the moments of just saying, wow, this is something playful. And even if you sit and imagine yourself horseback riding, that's enough. I want you to be really gentle with some of these messages that I'm giving you. So remember, this week in our Mars energy, we are looking at creation reversed, which is reclaiming an old project, something you've wanted to do. And of course, the facade card reversed, you've done a lot of work. Now let somebody off the hook, because one of the things I want to say to you is that when I recognized that I was holding myself back in my life because I didn't want my mother to take credit for what I had accomplished, when I recognized that and I let her off the hook, I realized that I could move forward because I was holding myself back because of a perceived idea that it would be her credit and not mine. And that kind of withholding had affected my whole life. So I hope these thoughts have helped you. I will see you next Saturday. And please, 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 if you like the video, please tell your friends. Also, make sure you comment below because I will reply to you. And I am looking forward to expanding my YouTube channel as we go forward. I hope you all have a very, very blessed week. And I'll see you next week.